Yes, ma'am.
Screen is visible to you?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Fine. Today we will start the second chapter of data structures. That is, the name of chapter is concepts of data structures. In concepts of data structures, we will start with some definitions. First of all, what is a data? Data, it is a collection of raw or random facts. Whatever the random facts, raw material, whether that data is in terms of integer values, character values, some strings, some paragraph, or even some number of images, collection of photos, collection of audios, whatever it may be. These all things, or these all raw or random facts, this is called as a data. What is data? It is a collection of raw facts or random facts. Next thing, related with the data structure, previously we have already made one definition of data structure, but apart from that, there are few more things about data structure. What is data structure? It is a representation of the logical relationship that exists between individual elements of data. It means, you see, as the term is data, number of data elements are there, and all those data elements are related with each other. They have some logical relationship with each other, and this particular combination of data with their relationship, it is called as a data structure. Okay, in short, data structure is one kind of representation of the logical relationship which exists between number of elements of data. In another way, we can say data structure is a specialized format. You see, data structure, we want to format data, we want to well organize data, so that data structure is a specialized format for organizing and storing data in memory that that considers not only the elements stored but also their relationship with each other. You see, what is this is the important definition of data structure. Huh? A logical or technical definition of data structure. It is a specialized format for organizing and storing data in memory that considers not only the elements stored but also their relationship to each other. The meaning of this definition is that data structure, it is nothing but we want to store data in memory in a well organized form, well organized format, and for that purpose, whenever we are storing the data in memory in well organized format, there exists a particular relationship of those data elements with each other, which is called as a data structure. Okay, this is a technical definition of data structure. Next thing, introductory part of data structure. You see, normally data structure affects the design of both structural and functional aspects of a program. You see, data structure making an effect, some kind of influence on structure of the program as well as the functionality of the program. That's why we can say that program is always equals to logic or algorithm plus data structure. You see, what is a program? Program is nothing but a combination of algorithm with data structure. Algorithm, what is algorithm? This is nothing but a step-by-step procedure or step-by-step logic by which we can solve a problem. That means we can combine the logic to solve a problem with data structure. It will form a complete program. That's why we are making a statement program equals to algorithm plus data structure. The meaning of this statement is that algorithm in combination with data structure forms a program. In other words, The logic to solve a problem in combination with data structure forms a program. Okay. Next thing, there is a classification of data structures. Data structures are normally divided into two broad categories. There are two types of data structures. First one is primitive data structure and second one is non-primitive data structure. We will go ahead with what is primitive data structure and what is non-primitive data structure. You see the diagrammatic structure of classification of data structure. Initially, data structure get divided into primitive data structure and non-primitive data structure. This primitive data structure again get, or we can say that these are the types or examples of primitive data structures. Examples of primitive data structures are integer, character, float, pointers. Integer, character, float, pointers, these can be considered as an types of primitive data structures. And non-primitive data structures basically get divided into arrays and lists. Arrays can again get divided into single dimensional array, two-dimensional array, multi-dimensional array. List can get divided into two types, linear list and non-linear list. Linear list get divided into, or we can say that the examples of linear list are stack, queue, linked list. Stack, queue, linked list, these are the examples of linear list. And trees and graphs, these are the examples of non-linear list. Okay, you see one more time, what is a data structure? Data structure get divided into primitive data structures and non-primitive data structures. The types of primitive data structures are integer, character, float, pointers. In short, the built-in data types are nothing but primitive data structures. Okay, and non-primitive data structures get divided into, we can say that there can be arrays and there can be lists. Arrays can be divided into single dimensional array, two-dimensional array, multi-dimensional array. List, which is also one type of non-primitive data structure. Those lists can be of linear list and non-linear list. Examples of linear list are stack, queue, linked list. And the examples of non-linear list are trees and graphs. You see, this complete subject, data structure, right now, according to your pre-vocational syllabus, this syllabus is completely concentrating on this much of part, list. The syllabus of data structure for B vocational, it is concentrating on this much of part, list. What are the lists? These are nothing but non-primitive data structures. There can be two types of list, linear list and non-linear list. Stack, queue, linked list, these are linear list. Trees and graphs, these are non-linear list. In data structure syllabus, you will see what is stack, the different things related with stack, what is queue, the different things related with queue, what is linked list, number of things, number of features of linked list, what is tree, what is graph, and various terms related with trees and graphs. Okay, right now you see stack and queue, these two things are there in your chapter 2. In chapter 2 we will see some things related with, number of things related with stack. What is stack, what are the operations of stack, what are the applications of stack, number of things are there. We will see what is queue and number of things of queue. That is the part of chapter 2 only. And from chapter 3 onwards, there is a linked list, trees and graphs. Okay, now initially just see here stack and queue. Okay, right now stack and queue, these are called as linear list. Okay, see here the word is linear. Linear means something which is aligned, so something which is sequential one by one. That's why it is called as linear list. Just remember that stack and queue, these are linear list only. Linear, as its words, you see the word is linear. Linear means something which is line by line, something which is sequential one by one, something which is completely aligned. That's why it is called as linear list. Stack and queue, these are the linear list. Okay, This complete diagram represents classification of data structure. First of all, we will start with primitive data structures. What are the primitive data structures? These are basic data structures. Basic data structures are primitive data structures. The data structures that are directly operated upon machine level instructions are called as primitive data structures. You see the definition of primitive data structures? What are the primitive data structures? These data structures can directly operated upon machine level instructions. That means the data which is involved in terms of primitive data structures, this can be directly operated on machine level instructions. Such a kind of data can be directly understandable by the machine level instructions. That means your hardware of the system can directly interpret primitive data types. For example, if you are using integer, floating numbers, you are using characters, you are using strings, pointers, etc. These all falls under primitive data structures. That means if you are building a particular program and that program is consisting of some number of integers, floats, characters, strings, and pointers, those then in that case, such a kind of data can be directly operate on machine level instructions. Means character, float, integer, string, pointer, such a kind of data can be directly understandable by your hardware. That's why these are basic data structures or primitive data structures. Then non-primitive data structures. These non-primitive data structures, these are more sophisticated data structures. Non-primitive data structures are more sophisticated data structures. See the definition of non-primitive data structure. The data structures that are derived from primitive data structures are called as non-primitive data structures. In short, the data structures which are derived from primitive data structures are called as non-primitive data structures. Non-primitive data structures always derived from primitive data structures. That's why it is called as the non-primitive data structure. You see, these non-primitive data structures emphasize on, the focus is mainly on structuring of a group of homogeneous or heterogeneous data types. In non-primitive data structures, obviously these are derived from primitive data structures, and it basically, what is the task of this primitive data structure? It normally makes the grouping of data items. It makes the groups of data items. Those groups of data can be homogeneous or heterogeneous. You see the meaning of homogeneous data and heterogeneous data is what? Homogeneous data means the similar type of data. For example, integer numbers 1, 2, 10, 15, 20. These are integer homogeneous data. Again, consider for example 10.2, 16.56, 17.95. These can be also considered as the floating point homogeneous data. For example, characters A, S, D, P, Q. These can be considered as character homogeneous data. Okay, and heterogeneous data items, for example, the group of some integers in combination with some characters, in combination with some strings, in combination with some floats. These can be considered as the heterogeneous data items. Okay, in short, the focus of non-primitive data structures is on making the grouping of data items, and those groups can be homogeneous data groups or heterogeneous data groups. The examples of non-primitive data structure are arrays and lists. For example, arrays and lists, these are the examples of non-primitive data structures. List, example of list can be stack, queue, tree, etc. Okay, in short, arrays, stack, queue, trees, or any kind of linked list, these are the examples of non-primitive data structures. Okay, in short, primitive data structures are directly understandable by the hardware of the software, hardware of the system. Primitive data structures examples are integer, float, character, strings, etc., which can be directly understandable. And non-primitive data structures, which are derived from primitive data structures. Normally, these are the groupings of similar types of data or different types of data together with each other. That is the non-primitive data structure. The examples of non-primitive data structure, arrays and lists. These are the examples of non-primitive data structures. Next one is the abstract data type. Okay, you can call this term as ADT. Normally, it is referred as ADT. ADT, abstract data type. You can refer it as abstract data structures also. Okay, abstract data type or abstract data structure, or in short ADT. What is ADT? Abstract data type. Now initially, just see the meaning of word abstraction. What is abstraction? Abstraction means what? Specifying something without going into its implementation details, which is called as abstraction. What is abstraction? Expressing something in simplified way without going into much more implementation details, without going into complexity, which is called as abstraction. Okay, the example, for example, one example is, for example, in our home we can see a switchboard. Switchboard is there and number of switches are there, and we know that one switch is for plugging something to charge, one switch is for fan, one switch is for light, etc., etc. Okay, we are able to view only that switchboard. Okay, that is nothing but the abstract view of switchboard. But behind that, number of wires are there, number of connections are there, positive switch is there, negative switch is there, ground, earthing is there. Okay, that means we are hiding the complexity behind that switchboard, and we are only able to view that switchboard. We can switch on or we can switch off. Okay, that's why we can consider a switchboard as the example of abstraction. Okay, what is abstraction? Abstraction is nothing but representing something without going into implementation details, without going into the complexity of that thing. Okay, that is nothing but abstraction or abstract view. Okay, in the same way, we can perform data abstraction also. We can perform data abstraction also. What is data abstraction? Now, data abstraction means representing data to the end user or the programmer without going into the complexity of that data, which is called as data abstraction. Okay, in the same way, data abstract type is here. Now, what is ADT? We will see what is ADT. It is a type defined in terms of its data items and associated operations without knowing its implementation. Okay, in short, what is this? This is the definition of abstract data type. It is defined in terms of its data items. You see, ADT is a combination of data items associated with its operations. That means the combination of data items with its operations without going into the implementation is called as abstract data type. The combination of data items with its associated operations without going into its implementation is called as abstract data type. Okay, we are well known that data types by now. For example, number of data types are there: integer, arrays, pointers, floating numbers, and so on. Okay, these are called as the data types. Okay, and to access those data, we can, or we have already used number of operations defined in programming languages. Okay, for example, consider C language is there, and in C language you want to perform the addition of two numbers with the help of addition function. Okay, addition function is there. Three variables are there, A, B, C, and you want to perform the addition operation there with the help of addition function. Okay, in that case, the combination of those integers A, B, C with the operation addition function, it is called as ADT here. Okay, that means you see, to access that data ABC, we have used operation like addition operation, which is defined in particular programming language. That programming language can be C++, C++, etc. For instance, by accessing array elements by using the square bracket notation. For example, you see, if you want to use array in C language, you can use array elements, or you can define array elements, initialize array elements with the help of square brackets. Okay, it is the part of ADT. Okay, in short, abstract data type, it is a data type whose representation is hidden from and of no concern to the application code. That means whenever programmer is doing his application code, programmer is designing some program or some software, at that time he is using data. At that time he is using various types of data types. In that case, actual representation of such a data types is hidden from that programmer, and there is no concern of that programmer with its implementation details. That is called as abstract data types. Okay, that means the term abstract data type is applied to programmer as well as end user also. If it is the concern of programmer, that means programmer is directly using various data types. Programmer is directly implementing something with the help of data types. Okay, but there is no need for that programmer to go into the depth that how exactly those data types are working on the ground level. That programmer has no concern with how exactly data types get implemented. Okay, in that way we can consider this as a abstract data type here. Okay, one example of abstract data type, ADT. For example, when writing application code, programmer don't care how strings are represented. He just declared variables of type string, and he is manipulating it by using various string operations. Okay, you see, one example is here. Application programmer wants to write some application code, some software code, and at the time of writing that code, he is using string representation in his code. He wants to use data type string. Okay, at that time he just want to declare variables of type string, and he is manipulating on that string with the help of number of built-in string operations. Okay, for example, he is declaring string space s1 comma s2 semicolon. That means programmer is declaring in his code s1 and s2. These are the two strings. These are two data of type string. Okay, and whenever he is declaring such a kind of declaration in his code, then he can perform number of built-in operations on strings like string copy, find out the string length. He can perform string concatenation. Such a string operations he can perform. Okay, that means programmer is directly using copying the string from one string to another string, calculating what is the total length of a string, making the concatenation of two strings. Such operations the programmer is directly using in his code, but he don't need to go into how the system is exactly performing string copying or finding the length of a string, making the concatenation, how exactly it is happening. There is no concern with the programmer. Okay, that's why here we can consider this one. We can consider this string declaration as an example of the abstract data types. Okay, once an abstract data type has been designed, the programmer responsible for implementing that type is concerned only with choosing a suitable data structure and coding up the methods. You see, whenever data type ADT is designed, The programmer is responsible for implementing it, implementing that data type, implementing that ADT. Okay, and his concern is only with choosing a suitable data structure and coding that particular data structure with the help of some number of functions or built-in methods. Okay. On the other hand, application programmers are concerned only with using that data type and calling its methods without worrying much about how the data type is implemented. I have already explained this particular point. The meaning of this point is that programmer is directly using data type. He is directly calling methods which are built-in available with it. But here there is no worrying about, no concern of him how that data type is implemented. Okay, this is nothing but data, abstract data types. The next thing is analysis of algorithms. The next point is analysis of algorithms. Now, before analysis of algorithms, we will see what is algorithm. The definition of algorithm is, as we already know, an algorithm is the step-by-step set of meaningful and clear instructions to solve a particular problem. What is algorithm? This is a step-by-step set of instructions which are meaningful and clear. Okay, and what is the purpose of designing algorithm? To solve a particular problem. Okay, now remember that suppose one problem is there and we want to design algorithm for that problem. Okay, in that case, we can design algorithm for that problem in n number of ways. That is, to solve a single problem, there can be one algorithm, two algorithm, three algorithm, four algorithm, 100 number of algorithms can be designed to solve the same problem. Okay, it is depend on the mindset and the logic of individual one. Anyone can apply his own logic and he can give the set of steps to solve the problem. That's why a single problem may have n number of algorithms to implement that solution. Okay, you see, we will see now what is analysis of those algorithms. Now already we know that a single problem is there and there can be n number of algorithms to solve that problem. That's why there is a need to do analysis of algorithms. Why analysis of algorithms? We must be able to figure out which one is the best one, which one is the efficient one, which one is the good one, so that it have to be implemented in software. Okay, for that purpose, analysis of algorithm is important. What is analysis of algorithm? The analysis of algorithm is to compare the various algorithms to solve a same problem. Okay, whatever the different algorithms we have to solve the same problem, we must be able to compare all those algorithms. For that purpose, there is a necessity of doing analysis of algorithms, right? This is done to analyze. What is the purpose of it? To analyze which algorithm takes less resources. Okay, what we are going to analyze for the algorithms? We are analyzing which algorithm is taking less, which algorithm is using less number of resources. Resources in terms of less time, resources in terms of less efforts, and resources in terms of less memory to solve a particular problem. In short, we are identifying if n number of algorithms are there, then we want to analyze which one is the algorithm which requires less time for computation, which one is the algorithm which requires less number of efforts, and which one is the algorithm which requires less memory. Okay, we want to figure out what is that algorithm which requires less time, less efforts, and less memory. Okay, that's why we are performing analysis of algorithms. Next thing, you see, the efficiency of an algorithm can be analyzed at two different stages. Okay, see, if we want to check efficiency of algorithm, then efficiency can be checked at two stages. Those stages are before implementation and after the implementation. Okay, you see, efficiency of the algorithm can be checked at two stages: before implementing the algorithm after implementing the algorithm. If we are checking the efficiency of algorithm before the implementation of it, it is called as a priori analysis. And if we are checking the efficiency of algorithm after implementation, it is called as posterior analysis. Okay, you see two analyses are there, a priori analysis and a posterior analysis. What is these two analyses are for what purpose? For checking the efficiency of the algorithm. What is a priori analysis? This is the type of analysis or efficiency checking analysis which is performed before an algorithm get implemented. And what is a posterior analysis? This is the type of efficiency analysis which performs after the algorithm get implemented in a programming language. Okay, just see first one, a priori analysis. This is a theoretical analysis of an algorithm. Always remember that priori analysis is a theoretical type of analysis of any algorithm. Okay, and here efficiency of an algorithm is always measured by assuming that the different factors such as processor speeds, memory have no effect on the implementation. There is one assumption here in a priori analysis is that they are always assuming that processor speed and memory usage have no effect on the implementation of the algorithm. Okay, this is a priori analysis of an algorithm. Okay, and it is done before an algorithm get implemented. It is always theoretical in nature. The second analysis is a posterior analysis. Posterior analysis, this is an empirical analysis of an algorithm. The selected algorithm is implemented first using some programming language, and then that algorithm get executed on target computer machine. Okay, that's why we are saying that posterior analysis is done after an algorithm get implemented. After algorithm get implemented with the help of some programming languages, we are executing that algorithm on particular target computer machine, and then we are analyzing various statistics like what is the exact running time of the algorithm, what is the space required for the execution of the algorithm. Such a data are collected here in a posterior analysis. Next thing is the algorithm complexity. You see, algorithm complexity, this is very important point from the analysis of algorithm point of view. If the algorithm is less complex, then obviously it is more efficient. If the algorithm is more complex, then obviously it is less efficient. Okay, and the algorithm's complexity is measured from the point of view of two factors, time factor and space factors. Time factor and space factors, these are the two important factors for checking the algorithm complexity. Okay, for example, we have an algorithm X. The time and space used by that algorithm X are the two main factors which obviously decides an efficiency of the algorithm X. Okay, what is time factor? Wait a minute. What is time factor? Time factor is measured by counting the number of key operations in an algorithm. What are the total number of key operations are there in algorithm which determines time factor? And what is space factor? What is the space measured by counting the maximum memory space required by the algorithm? What is the space required to execute the algorithm? That is nothing but the space factor. Okay, depending on these two factors, we can calculate the complexity of an algorithm. You see, depending upon these above two factors, there are two complexities for algorithm. Namely, there can be a time complexity and space complexity. We have to calculate